folks join. Let folks trickle in here a little bit, and we'll get started in maybe 1 minute. All right. Good morning, Snohomish County. My name is Gary Clark, President and CEO of Economic Alliance Snohomish County, and I have the distinct pleasure to bring you to another Coffee Chats with EASC. So, you know that we advocate, develop, and connect. This morning, I just want to go over some housekeeping items before we move on to introducing our amazing speaker for today. First and foremost, add your organization to your name on the Zoom ID so that we know who you are when you chat, because we want you to engage. And this is going to be an opportunity for us to have a hybrid conversation. We're going to have Congresswoman DelBene give us some information, and then we're going to actually have an open conversation following that. So please engage. This is going to be a great opportunity for communication. And now, drum roll, please. All right, folks, our speaker for today is Congresswoman Suzanne DelBene, representing Washington's 1st District. And this is a place and a location that spans from Northeast King County to the Canadian border and includes parts of King, Snohomish, Skagit, Whatcom counties. Suzanne takes on a wide range of challenges, both in Congress and in the 1st District, and is a leader on issues of technology, healthcare, trade, taxes, environmental conservation, and agriculture. And she also has a host of accomplishments that you all need to be aware of. First and foremost, she helped the state to extend for state, local, and tribal governments our CARES funding that would support to pay police officers, firefighters, all of those first line and essential workers. Also, she secured $200 million to expand job training opportunities, including $22 million for Washington. And the list goes on and on. I just have to say, we are pleased to welcome Congresswoman Suzanne DelBene.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, everyone. It's great to be with you this morning and virtually, and look forward to when we get together in person before too long. This is a big week. A lot is happening, but the biggest thing happening this week is child tax credit checks will go out on Thursday. This is something I've personally been leading the charge on, and it's been a long effort, both before the pandemic and as a result of the pandemic. We expanded the child tax credit in the American Rescue Plan, and that's what is starting these monthly payments that are going out on Thursday, up to $300 per child. It really will help families get through this crisis as they're trying to recover and rebuild after the pandemic. But I've supported this for a long time because it's good long-term policy. Nearly 66 million kids across the country, 1.4 million in Washington state, will benefit from the expanded child tax credit. And this would help cut child poverty across the country in half if we keep this going. So it's in the American Rescue Plan for a year. So you're going to see checks go out from July 15th on the 15th of every month through December. And then the second half of the credit will be available to folks as they file their 2021 taxes in 2022. But I do think that this should be a permanent benefit. It really will have an incredible impact on children. It costs us, so childhood poverty costs us so much money, and we can actually save money, improve outcomes, and help families if we make this permanent. So you're going to hear a lot more about that as we continue with conversations in Washington, D.C. Now, you also are hearing about infrastructure all the time. The overview, the Senate is in session this week. I'm home right now. They are working on the bipartisan framework and also on a budget resolution. So kind of the quick overview is that we have to pass bills to keep the government funded like we do every year. Something we'll be doing, our appropriations bills, something that we'll be working on in the House this month, passing those. We also have the bipartisan framework that might go beyond that in terms of providing extra dollars for long-term infrastructure, which is also important because all of you know how behind we have been. We passed our infrastructure bill in the House, the Invest Act, that also included a lot of support for projects. Congressman Larson and I have jointly been asking for money to help in the effort to start to replace the trestle on Highway 2, but we know that there's a lot of work to be done on infrastructure throughout our region. And then we need to pass a budget resolution that will set the kind of top line numbers for what we're going to do as we move forward. And that also would set the top line numbers for anything that would go through reconciliation, which you've also heard about. So you're going to see movement on infrastructure package, movement on a budget resolution, which is being debated in the Senate right now. We'll also be doing that in the House later this month, as well as working on those appropriation bills that we hope to pass. All of this because this is how we get the resources out for infrastructure, which we know is important, and broad infrastructure, including things like housing, broadband. I remind everyone, all of you know that in our region, I always describe my district as one of the biggest technology hubs on the globe, and yet you can go an hour from one part of my district to another part of my district where we don't have broadband or even good cell service, and a chunk of that is in Snohomish County. So we have a lot of work to do because we're behind, and I do think the investments we're talking about in these areas are critically important, not only to get us to catch up, but to get ahead. So that means in transit and out at community transit earlier this month, talking about the maintenance facility that they're expanding to be able to better serve our community, especially as we see light rail coming up towards Linwood. The work to electrify transit. But again, all the work we have to do on infrastructure, I talked about the trestle, but we have so much work throughout the region, and then broadband, housing, all those. So we're trying to make sure that we have strong support and resources to help move all of these projects forward. Again, not just to catch up, but to get ahead, because that's really the foundation for our economy and that all of you depend on. But I want to have this conversation that Gary talked about, so let me turn it back to him and we'll open it up and go wherever we all want to go.
All right, folks. Well, this is a great opportunity to ask a few questions and dive in a little bit. I think first things first, with the question on infrastructure that has come up, Congresswoman DelBene, what are your thoughts on our expanded efforts here in Snohomish County when it comes to infrastructure? What are the points of emphasis for you?
Well, clearly broadband is huge because we're not going to have economic opportunity and growth, especially as we look at places in Eastern County that I represent. Eastern looks like from I-5 East, so it's a lot of county, but really if you go further out, it's not just any connectivity, and we have places that have no connectivity. As you get out towards Darrington, et cetera, you can have places where folks don't have any connectivity, and as I said, good cell service. But then it's connectivity to do what we're doing now. Some people can, send emails back and forth, but may not be able to do a video conference. And I think we'd all agree that for education, for telehealth, for work opportunities, that this is really the baseline. So that's huge. The transportation infrastructure, as we know, we haven't kept up, especially with all of the growth in our region, and Snohomish County's seen huge growth. So that's a combination of surface transportation and transit. And those are huge areas. And then last one, as I said, housing, affordable housing. Senator Cantwell and I have been leading the effort on the affordable housing credit to help the financing go through for more affordable housing. But we need more affordable housing across the country, but including in rural and tribal communities where affordable housing is also lacking. But housing prices in our region have been going up in the pandemic, and we're already behind in terms of people who are rent burdened. So those are three huge areas right there that I think are critically important to Snohomish County.
Thank you very much. So as far as the efforts that you're taking, I guess one of the questions we have here is how can our community help support your efforts?
Well, a lot of resources that we will put together at the federal level, some may go direct to programs through grants, but a lot of things also go through the state or to local governments. And a lot of infrastructure is also about matching, having matching dollars. Federal dollars kind of complete projects, but they don't always provide all the resources to get them started. So I'd say one big thing is to make sure that we're all doing the work to get projects moving down the pipeline, so as resources are available, they are able to come and those projects are already eligible. So I think, and prioritization, which is always hard because I know not everybody has the same priorities always, but we got to think about what we want to work on first and where dollars will go as resources become available. But again, I know the trestle has been a top issue for the region for a long time, and that's been a top issue when you talk about surface transportation. And then more broadly, broadband and housing probably impact all of our areas throughout the county. But we have to make sure we have do whatever work we need to do, that groundwork to make sure projects are moving forward and they're ready as resources become available. And a lot of that happens at the state and local level.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I think our goal is definitely to support you as best we can from Snohomish County level. Another question is, as things open up, do you see any concerns or issues that might arise in your mind?
Well, I think we always are, I think collectively, we all have to worry about, continue to worry about the virus. We're not past it. We've made great progress, but vaccination rates are still critically important as we see the Delta variant and frankly concerns about other variants coming through and the disproportionate impact that's going to have on communities and on healthcare. We have seen through the pandemic, we have probably done more on telehealth than we probably would have done otherwise. And I raise that because that's a long-term opportunity for our communities, for us to make sure that we keep that progress on telehealth and move forward. That's been very, very important, especially again for our rural communities where getting in to see a doctor and transportation was very hard, or during the pandemic, but during a normal time where traffic might be really hard, going in could be very difficult. And I know traffic levels have started to pick back up again. So we need to continue to make sure that we are building on those opportunities. And I think we all have work to do to think through what the work environment is going to be going forward. All of you are probably thinking about this right now. Are folks going to go into the office like they used to? Are folks going to work remotely? Is there some combination? Some jobs, it's clear that you can't do that. Others, there might be opportunities. What does that mean in terms of where people live? We've seen people move a lot during the pandemic, move out into, Gary's raising his hand, move because of work opportunities, but also because they decided that maybe if they're going to work remotely, they don't necessarily have to live right next to where they worked before. How are all those things going to impact our long-term planning? I don't think any of us 100% know exactly what that means going forward, but I think we have a lot of work to think that through. And then last thing is supply chains, which I know are critical in probably every sector, including in our big manufacturing sector. But we need to think through for long-term how we build resilient supply chains so that we know that if we're ever in a situation like this before, we are better prepared. And that means all the way through, right? You see semiconductors right now, a huge chance of semiconductors, and that's impacted, for example, auto manufacturing. So you could have every other part, but if you don't have the semiconductor, that could hold down all production. I think we're gonna think through that a lot, and feedback on that is helpful as we think nationally and internationally what that means and what policies we need to put in place to be better prepared.
Thank you. Another question we have from Tom at Everett Transit, and obviously this makes sense, him coming from Everett Transit. Will any of the infrastructure dollars be able to help us get light rail to Everett sooner than 2041?
Well, see, now I'll go back to my other answer, which is, there's dollars that are critically important, but then the other importance is what are the priorities for the local community and where those go? Because to move forward, we need to have our priorities straight in terms of what we think funding needs. Clearly, there's a lot of money continuing to go through light rail expansion right now, even getting things open up to Linwood, et cetera. But where do we want, where does the local community want those resources to go when we think about all the projects that we should be working on? I think that's part of it. One thing I've been pushing for too is high-speed rail. So there's another effort to look at high-speed rail, for example, in the Cascadia corridor, which would be Portland to Vancouver. As the head of the transportation committee, Peter DeFazio from Oregon says Eugene to Vancouver since he's from Eugene. But I think that we also have to look at those opportunities to help, because we know, and any of you have traveled internationally and used high-speed rail in many places, including Asia, for example, they're just huge opportunities for us to reduce traffic if people had reliable high-speed rail to travel between British Columbia and Oregon, and the opportunities that would have for our communities in between. So those are other things that we have proposed to make sure there are resources for to get started as we look at infrastructure, but those are long-term decisions, so it's not going to be any one piece. It's kind of collectively where we want our priorities to be and what we want to invest in first.
Thank you. I see you have some folks agreeing with you in the chat as well. So I do have an additional question for you. This pertains to just small business. And so I was wondering through this pandemic, if over your time traveling back and forth, if there is a small business thought that you have for Snohomish County businesses, but also if there is any anecdotal stories or messages that you have from engaging with small businesses at this time.
Absolutely. Met with a lot of small businesses and continue to. I mean, the focus, I think, was on resources to help businesses get through, and still is. The Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, was a critical program for folks. The Employee Retention Tax Credit, something that I led the effort on, was critical to help people make payroll. The credit was expanded at the end of the year in the COVID-19 deal we passed at the end of the year, and extended through the end of 2021. So that can still, up for businesses for this year, it can provide up to $28,000 per worker for 2021. So those are other resources that are available to help. We had the Restaurant Revitalization Fund to directly help restaurants. That money was fully expended very quickly. So we're working on legislation to try to add more resources to that, given the huge demand that we've had from the community. Clearly, workforce is a big issue. I think everyone is hearing that in terms of folks looking to find workers as things start to open up, and every size business, but small businesses in particular. And some of the challenges, folks have talked about unemployment, but even places where people have reduced unemployment, they haven't necessarily seen everyone come back to the workforce. And part of that is because we still have issues with childcare. Some people move to different, as I talked about earlier, so people may not be able to bring back the folks who used to work at their business because they may have moved someplace else or taken a different opportunity. So I do think workforce is something that we all are going to be focused on, because making sure that folks have the ability to have an affordable place to live. That's another thing I've heard for small businesses, people seeing job opportunities, but not sure they can move to where that opportunity is, given how expensive it is in our region. And I'd say the other huge one we hear about all the time is childcare. And we had childcare challenges before the pandemic, but definitely now, as folks are trying to get back to, and some programs that were normally available in the summer didn't get started up for this summer. So as we look to the fall, the hope is that, through school and other programs, those will start to open up more and help there. But another thing we proposed, and the president proposed in the American Families Plan, is to increase childcare, not only resources to help people afford childcare, but just make sure we have more providers and educators, because we had scarcity of affordable childcare before the pandemic.
Excellent, excellent. I, as a father of three, I understand that direction. I remember in the Omaha area, my childcare fees were more than my mortgage. So it's something that a lot of families deal with.
I was just going to say quickly, and that's another reason the checks coming out this week on Thursday, the child tax credit checks, that's up to $300 per child per month. It's $300 for children under the age of 6, $250 a month for children between 6 and 17. So that is a huge help to families for childcare, for rent, for other expenses. So that's hopefully something that will help right away.
That is excellent. We really appreciate your work there. There is one additional question I have here, and it's from Tom Lucas at Trinity Education Foundation. It's tied to senior care in Washington State, and I won't read the entire comment, but needless to say, there's been a struggle for support in that space from Tom's message here, and concerns about 20 closures in the last 4 years of facilities. And the question that he asks is, what help can the industry receive from the national level to help the situation here in Washington?
Well, one thing that you might have seen when the president put out the American Jobs Plan, and a lot of focus there was on infrastructure, but one piece they referred to as the care economy, and a big chunk of that was focused on long-term care and the challenges that we face. I talk about the importance and lack of availability of childcare, but we have a huge challenge in terms of available long-term care and senior care throughout our country, and also hugely expensive. So so many families are kind of feeling that on both sides. But the emphasis that the administration put on the care economy was to make sure not only we continue to invest in and build a strong workforce, because we need to make sure that we have that workforce availability and that they are making a living wage. So we have long-term care workers, but also so they can get by and can afford to live in an area like ours that has become more expensive. And then to continue to invest to make sure that we have and when I say care, I don't necessarily mean particular facilities that are providing long-term care. I also mean home care, kind of all the options going forward, which is where that has been broadly addressed, because I think it's going to depend on what you want and what particular needs are, but we know that's a critical component too. So that is a big chunk of the jobs plan. Some people have said, well, that's not infrastructure, but it is key to families being able to get by. So there's that. There's other efforts specifically on healthcare policy, and I'm happy to talk directly to you more about that if you want to get on the wonky side of kind of in terms of some of the work happening on kind of reimbursement and some of the work that we have to do, for example, in Medicare, et cetera. But I know the broad issue on workforce has been key because we just haven't enough people. And as a result of the pandemic too, I'd say across healthcare overall, I think we're going to have many challenges because we already had a shortage of healthcare workers, and they have been through a lot, and so we face those shortages going forward, and that's a long-term effort to address these issues, which is why we need to make sure we're making long-term investments and plans.
Okay, and I think we only have time for just a few more questions, but I hopefully that we'll get some parting words from you as well, Congresswoman DelBene. We actually have from Diane, who states, what is your thought about balancing the appropriate priority of basic support of business and individuals with technology such as internet access, supportive technologies required to future business competitive environments such as 5G, quantum computing, et cetera. And I think you highlighted a little note on technology earlier, but if you care to expand a little bit from this question.
Sure, and hi, Diane. I think one, we have to start from basic education, STEM, and I'd say STEAM education, make sure that all of our kids and frankly going through the workforce, folks have the skills that they need to work with technologies because they're part of everything we do and or part of every sector and every type of job. So when we talk about individuals, I think that starts with basic education and learning kind of basic computer science. And I always say STEAM, not just STEM, including the arts in there, because people need to be able to use technology. It doesn't help just to have technology for technology's sake. Usability is important. When we talk about, for example, businesses having customer-facing sites or the government having customer-facing sites, you got to talk about whether or not people are able to use those, they understand them, and a lot of that interface work has to do with more of that art side. So I always throw that in there. But if we're really going to be competitive, we need basic infrastructure that gets to the broadband issue and being able to do, like I said, a level to do what we're doing now that allows our communities to have the economic development opportunities and for kids who are growing up there to also have those educational opportunities, and that's a competitiveness issue. 5G rollout will be important. But right now, I think universal strong broadband is key. 5G might help in some places. It's a little harder when we look at our areas out east as we get to the mountains because they don't have as long, when we look at the line of sight, 5G needs a little more infrastructure than others, and we already have problems with line of sight when we have mountains in there. So I'd say whatever technologies help us do a good job of getting that out there are going to be important. But yes, you're going to see further rollout of 5G. And frankly, as we look at all of this, we have to make sure that one, we are keeping a keen eye on cybersecurity as we do that, given all the ransomware attacks that you've seen and ongoing challenges. Security has to be top of mind, and privacy. And some of you have heard me, I am leading an effort on federal privacy legislation. Consumers need to know what their rights are, especially if they're going to trust and engage. So we need federal privacy legislation. I don't think a state-by-state patchwork works well for anyone, and we need to be at the international table too. So I've been fighting for federal policy there. But that's important because we look collectively at how technology is used. Trust is key, and folks need to know what their rights are in a digital world, and I think we're behind on policy there. So that was a little bit of everything, but and I probably missed a ton of stuff in there too, but hopefully that's a partial answer to your question.
Thank you so much. So I think we're close to being out of time to get you to your next item, but I know that Angie Sievers from our Snohomish County STEM is on here and is probably really excited to hear you talk about STEM and STEAM and getting those businesses to connect. So if you businesses haven't talked to Angie, please do. But Congresswoman, any closing remarks to our businesses and members and investors here?
The last thing I'd say is please stay in touch. We're going to see a lot of activity here as we work through infrastructure legislation, as we work through broad legislation to help all of us build back better. And that includes everything from tax policy. I sit on the Ways and Means Committee, so we'll be very involved in tax policy, how we pay for things. But things will come together and move fairly quickly over these next few months. So I just appreciate folks staying engaged, involved. If you have questions, please reach out to our office. But I know we will also be seeking out feedback as things start to coalesce in terms of what policy will look like, what kind of final policy will look like. And so that may impact different sectors differently, and your feedback along the way there will be really helpful. So I look forward to that ongoing engagement too. And just thanks for allowing me to join you for a few minutes today.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman DelBene. We appreciate your energy and your work and effort to continue to sustain Snohomish County and Washington State and your district. We really appreciate your hard work and fortitude here, and we look forward to more impact that you'll have on the national level for Washington State. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. So, folks, now is your opportunity to dive into some conversation. I'm going to change my screen to gallery, which means that you all can do the same. This is an open dialogue conversation about small business or business in general, or any issues or items that you'd like to discuss for Snohomish County. I only ask that if you would do the little emoji or reaction that is your little hand raise, the yellow hand raise, and then you can unmute. So if you see someone who has already done so, I will try to call your name, just your first name, and say, hey, go ahead and unmute. So let's dive in. I'm going to actually start this off by putting Angie on the spot because I mentioned her at the end. Angie, just a brief update from STEM, if you can, and you are welcome to unmute.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, everyone. I love how she called out the A in STEAM. So you might hear STREAM as well. R is for reading, A is for art. It's really about, I think in talking with business, what they want, they'll say, we want more kids interested in math and science. I'm like, tell me more about that. It's really problem solving, collaboration, challenging status quo, being creative. It starts young. And we're really excited that conversation around supporting early learning, where 85% of our brain development happens between the age of 0 and 5, is underway. There's awareness about that. Building blocks for our future. It also gets us back to work in this current situation. So super exciting about the support and the resources coming our way, not only in our region, but our state. It will help as we, as kids go back to school this fall, bring people back to work. So that's number one, a bit of a crisis that our businesses are in. And then when feet are under us and things are working and supply chains are improving, how do we inspire kids to get out of the box, get out of the mundane monotony, get them excited? And I would just sum this short conversation up with, it's community-based work. It's helping our local students, children, college students understand the opportunities that are right down the street. And that connectivity comes through our small businesses, our community-based organizations reaching out and working with colleges and high schools to tell that story. It matters when it's close to home and it's part of where we go and drive by every single day. So I would just encourage you all to be thinking about the conversations you have with neighbors and colleagues and just your everyday conversation. You never know whose little ears are listening. You can turn them on or off in a moment. So thanks for being here. And I'll drop my email and contact info in the chat if you ever have questions about getting involved with our schools, or you just want to learn about like how to get involved. There's a million ways to do it. Lots of you on this call are involved in supporting students in that way. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Angie. All right, let's open this up. Does anyone have any thoughts or updates or concerns business-wise or community-wise that just want to bring to the forefront for conversation? I don't want to put people on the spot, but you know what? I am going to do this because Diane is on the call. Diane, you did have a question to Congresswoman about 5G. Why don't you give us your thoughts on small business and entrepreneurship?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Gary. Obviously, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the Executive Director of the Northwest Innovation Resource Center. Haven't had enough coffee this morning. And we focus exclusively on entrepreneurs and small businesses and general individuals who are very innovative. And one of the things that we see more all the time are individuals that are incorporating new technologies into their business. So the IoT, a lot of the Internet of Things and the data coming out of that. And it seems to me that that's really important for our small businesses to be competitive. Excuse me, competitive going forward. Angie's absolutely right. The need for creativity starting at an early age is important, because that really helps a lot by the creativity by the time they get to be older. The question that I asked Congresswoman DelBene was kind of a setup, because I believe that we really do need more of the basic infrastructure before we put too much of money in the quantum and the 5G, because those are very high dollar requirements to promote that. And you can do a lot more with basic infrastructure using $1 million than you can with 5G using $1 million. Both are important, but I think we need to prioritize right now the basics so that everybody can participate, and then get caught up in supporting the future technologies in sort of a secondary role, just to clarify my personal perspective on that. But I do think that there's a lot of things that our current small businesses can do with basically the tools that are available now. And one of the things that we're doing is putting on some new programs for small businesses to be able to support and get help with ideas around clean tech and maritime and oceans health. So we'll be sending some things out through Economic Alliance to let you all know about some of those things and what might be of interest to you and your individual communities to help the small businesses get moving. Okay. And I like your pig picture.
Thank you, Diane. You're welcome to come visit. If you want to take a photo next to it, we can make that happen.
Okay.
So folks, thank you, Diane, for those comments. I really appreciate those. So folks, open this up to questions and concerns for community and small business. Are there thoughts or concerns, even in connection with education, as Angie mentioned, or technology, as Diane mentioned? But beyond that, how are you all doing pandemic-wise? Are there any shifts and changes that you'd like to share with us today? I'm going to give you guys the brief, awkward pause as you think about that. And then I'm going to dive into another ask. So we have one of our investors on the call, Russell. Russell, I want to shoot it to you. Give us a quick update on what's taking place with the public service.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. As we're emerging from the pandemic, we're seeing volumes for commercial companies come back, which is a great kind of pre-indicator that economic vitality is returning. So I want to kind of give you a ray of hope, so to speak, that businesses and restaurants are coming back and getting back online just by the volumes that we're seeing. And we certainly will continue to be there to pick up everything that's put out for us. But I just wanted to share that early indicator with you, and thank everyone for being on this call and continue to work with your own businesses to get them back on their feet. We'll handle it once you put it to the curb, but you know, you guys are doing a great job in Snohomish County getting back on your feet, and we do really appreciate it. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Russell. I'm going to kick this to our Fairfield friend, Terry, as well. Terry, what are you seeing as things are shifting in your industry? Can you give us a quick update from your end? You're muted right now.
Okay, sorry about that. So we've been extremely busy, but I'm really finding a disconnect between the fact that there's an affordable housing crisis and there is affordable housing available. So our communities in Linwood and Edmonds are pretty full. We do have some 1 and 2 bedroom apartments available for lower income seniors, but in the greater Seattle area, and I know this is not Snohomish County, but in some of the other counties, we have a lot of newly renovated 1 and 2 bedroom apartments available for seniors. And I just don't think the word is out there. So I think when people hear affordable housing, they connote wait list or housing voucher or something like that. So I think that there's a disconnect in the language and the the thought of whether or not there's opportunity. Then the other disconnect is affordable isn't necessarily affordable, as strange as that sounds. Affordable is according to restrictions and income restrictions. So perhaps what is determined to be affordable in a community is based on, you know, your median income and, you know, a percentage of the market value. Not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has the gross monthly income to meet the minimum requirement, which might be 2 times the monthly rent. So there is still a disconnect in that, you know, affordability. And I am concerned. We have senior apartments available, and they're not being rented.
Okay, those are some very, very clear questions and concerns. I will tell you from the EASE perspective, we are putting our heads together to push for some form of a housing collaboration countywide. And so look for more information on that as we try to push for partners to come together and see how we can dive into providing more assistance and remedy here. I want to keep it moving around the room, so don't be dismayed. If your screen is on, that means I might come to you. So just with a brief update, don't have any fear about it, and just stay with me. So we've done some housing conversation. We've had some conversation about technology. We've had just a little bit of conversation about talent, and I know we have Dr. Blasco on as well from Monroe. So I'm going to kick it to you to give us your spin on what's happening pandemic-wise and how education is seemingly getting through this.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good to be here. Good to listen to Congresswoman DelBene. So we were impacted. So Monroe School District was impacted as far as we're organized into educational service districts in the state, and we are a part of ESD 189, which is housed up in Anacortes. So our ESD goes from Snohomish County all the way up to the Canadian border, Cascade Crest to the islands. So, and Monroe was impacted really drastically by enrollment. We lost over 800 students. We were about a 6,000 student school district. So losing 800 students, that's the size of our large middle school, one of our 2 largest middle schools. So that was a really big economic impact to us. We're not sure what's going to happen. Things are very politicized right now, and that's landing in our board meetings. So If you haven't attended one of your local school board meetings, I would suggest maybe tuning in. I think we're all dual platform now, live and broadcasting on Zoom. Last night we had individuals come and express their concern over masking and vaccinations. And ironically, as they introduced themselves, I think only one of the 6 or 7 individuals had any affiliation to Monroe School District. So it was more of a regional kind of effort. As far as talent goes, we have had a lot of attrition due to, I think, really struggling through teaching and serving in a pandemic. I think that was very challenging. Those individuals that were at that point in their careers that could look at a change have. So we've lost a lot of talent. I just direct messaged Angie. We very recently, within the last 2 years, started the Core Plus program, which is a career and technical education program. Specifically, we are doing the Boeing Core program, which is advanced manufacturing, to really set up our students after 2 years to walk away from high school with a certificate and be able to step into manufacturing jobs directly out of high school and then be supported by the companies that hire them. We lost our instructor, and so we're really scrambling on this end. It's a very specific position, right? I mean, this is someone who's teaching students how to measure and drill and rivet and all of those things that you think about with advanced manufacturing. And so there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure, Gary, to try to backfill these positions in the midst of the unknown of, are parents going to continue to choose options other than public education? Because, all arrows are pointing. You saw California this week, the governor came out and said, everyone will be wearing masks in September. And so we have a very polarized community right now. We have people on this side that are supportive of mask wearing. We have people on this side that are adamantly opposed to it. CDC came out last week and said that vaccinated students don't have to wear masks when they're inside. And from a social emotional perspective, for all of us have been children at one point, right? Our medical decisions were determined by our parents. And so, I worry about students coming into school who are not vaccinated, so that they would be required to wear masks, and then the judgment or the social emotional feelings of being different and all of those things, the social pressure that has. So I don't know if that's what you wanted me to cover, Gary, but those are the things that are on my mind right now as a superintendent. Is we have discord within our employee group, right? I mean, I'm in our district office right now. When we opened Washington, one of the things that was clearly an exception to opening Washington was schools. Part of my morning was reading a legal brief from one of our attorneys that's affiliated with our risk management pool, just simply stating that it's ambiguous. The directives are ambiguous. So schools, what is a school? How do you define what a school is? We have a student that's receiving services here in our district office. And so the legal interpretation we have is that we need to continue to wear masks when we move through this facility. And, we're not a school, we're an office, really, a central office, district office, but there's just a lot of pressure. And it seems like the educational system, the schools, are kind of at the tip of these pressure points. I think all of us, me included, my wife and I were able to escape to Idaho for a vacation at Schweitzer Mountain. And I tell you, being in Spokane and being in Coeur d'Alene and Sandpoint, it was very nice to not have to think about, entering into business, being vaccinated, not having to enter into businesses or things with masks. And it seemed like everyone around us, very, very few masks in that experience. And that's landing here, with the exception that schools, at this point, if we were to open school tomorrow, highly likely that we would all be required to be masked up. So it's kind of an interesting place to be right now on this side of things. I think it's very exciting to have all of the opening, and we've taken advantage. We ate at our favorite Thai restaurant yesterday for lunch, and it was very fun to talk to Panu, to talk to the proprietor, and to hear him talk about his experience through the pandemic and how excited they were to have customers back in. And but as far as schools go, we are still working through the requirement to continue masking, and as long as the vaccinations remain 12 and up, that creates a serious challenge for us. We serve students from 3 years old to 21 years old. And so in public schools. And so there's a big faction of our students, about 2,000, just over 2,000 of our students are under the age of 12. So it's an interesting time to be in education.
Well, thank you, Dr. Blasco. I think that puts everyone on notice that they need to be heavily engaged in the educational efforts right now as we transition. School is coming up in the near future. And so it's important that we are listening in, engaged, and making sure we're making sound decisions, or at least voicing our opinion in some way, shape, or form. I'm gonna catch Tom just after I bring up Sinead. I want to give you a chance. If you guys don't know, her name is actually derived from a French name, which is Jeanette, and then it also means God forgave and something like that. Sorry, I know I shouldn't know that, but I do. Go ahead.
That's awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Sinead Fitzpatrick-Floggy. I am the new Career Connected Learning Coordinator at the Northwest Educational Service District. So thank you, Dr. Blasco, for providing a great overview of the ESD and our role. And I will be working in concert with Angie to really develop the opportunities for youth to explore opportunities, career connected learning opportunities, and hopefully, I say hopefully because there's just so much opportunity, so much work to be done, but I'm looking forward to connecting and creating and learning more. I'm actually from Skagit County, so I will be spending a ton of time learning about Snohomish County and the needs. And so one step is, of course, to attend these meetings. And I just so appreciate listening and learning from all of you. And so I hope to be seeing more of you as the year goes on. So thank you so much, Gary.
All right, no problem. And Tom, you have your hand raised appropriately, so dive in.
Well, first of all, I wanted to, Dr. Blasco, share your pain. Transit is in exactly the same boat. Everybody on a bus has to wear a mask, and we understand that. What we don't always understand is why we in an office have to wear a mask, because it's a federal guideline, it's not the state guidelines. But what I wanted to share is that, just like Russell shared that, or the Joe shared that you can measure activity by the amount of debris that you're picking up. We're also measuring activity at Everett Station by how full the park and ride is getting. So each day we're seeing more and more people use the various transportation services, and the park and ride is getting fuller a little bit every day. And we're also slowly seeing people return to buses, but we're also seeing a real shift in, as you all probably noted, number of people that aren't coming back to any kind of office space. And so our industry, Everett Transit is a small business among a larger bunch of larger businesses doing the same kind of business. And so it's interesting to listen to these conversations and to hear how we're all sort of seeing things return to whatever normal looks like, but still a long ways to go. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Excellent thoughts there. We're gonna kick it to Nicole and then Michelle. So Nicole, take it away.
Well, I think I came back at the best time as things are kind of reopening So for those of you that don't know me, I'm the Director of Investor Relations at Economic Alliance. I just started a couple weeks ago. So really what I've been hearing and noticing from particularly our small businesses that I've been chatting with is that they're really just trying to kind of rip off that Band-Aid and get themselves to be able to serve the capacity and the need that they're seeing. So, I mean, that really fits into the unemployment trends that other folks have seen. In talking with some of the chambers, I think events are going to look different for nonprofits and networking alike. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that all shakes out. I know that some companies are waiting till 2022. Some have already gone back in person. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of flexibility and kind of pivoting and seeing where people are at. Speaking of in-person events, if you didn't catch Katie's chat, the port report is tonight and there is still space. So come by, check us out in person, say hi. We'll be outdoors, we'll be indoors, trying to match everyone's comfort level. And if you're still staying in, you can still tune in. So you check it out virtually. Katie, can we drop the link in the chat for that?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Gary, I'm looking at the clock, so I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Nicole. Michelle, I'd like to give you the final comment, and then we did have a question. I guess this would be for any of our education folks. If schools are thinking or looking at ways to gamify education with youth and remote access, utilizing gaming efforts. I know there's a couple of schools, quite a few schools who have started to give scholarships for gaming. So just a question that you guys can converse in chat or later on, but Michelle, take it away. Or not. Michelle, are you with us? Oh, I see you. You gotta unmute there. All right. Don't worry about it, Michelle. Guess what? I'm going to wrap things up here and we're going to put you on the spot next time. So United Way, Snohomish County, Michelle, you guys check her out if you haven't already. No worries there. Okay, so as Nicole stole my thunder, there is the port report happening today, folks, today in person. And from Katie's perspective, it's been over 100 years since we've had an in-person event. So please, if you have any comfort level at all about coming to this event, we would love to have you. There's still room, as Nicole mentioned, and there is going to be a link in the chat here for you. So that's today, July 13th, 4 to 6 p.m. at Hotel Indigo. And please show up if you have time to join us. Now, this has been a great conversation. We do have another chat coming up on July 20th at 8:30 a.m. Homelessness will be the focus. And I know a lot of you have had some questions and thoughts about this in the general Snohomish County region. And also in Everett, I've seen a lot of articles coming out recently. So please join us next week, July 20th, 8:30 a.m. Coffee chats. Please raise your coffee cups in solidarity with me. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you all being flexible with the conversation. Have a great day. See you tonight.